I'm Sue Herrera. I'm the Director of Instructional Development and a consultant for Step Up. And I recently attended a DESE Science Content Training led by Susan German on September 6th. And I'm just on here real quick to share my notes with you, give you some updates from the information that she shared. So she started by discussing the state assessment and telling us the process that is used to create a state assessment in the area of science. It's developed by Missouri educators just like us, and she invited us to answer the call next time DESE asks for content science writers for the assessment. She talks about the reviews that it goes through. They go through several reviews, at least one for content and then another one for bias. And then of the 60 some odd thousand students that might be tested in fifth grade across the state of Missouri, 3,000 to 5,000 students will see different field test questions, the ones that have been developed. And then those are analyzed. That data is analyzed to see, is this a test question that we can use? You know, if you have a test question that no one is able to answer, then you know that perhaps it's too rigorous. And so they do that sort of analysis. And if it passes the test, so to speak, as a test question, then it will be implemented in the following years. Her message about the types of test questions that we're actually delivering right now, she shared with us this graphic and the extrapolation of the type of questions that kids see in fifth grade. This is recent data from this last spring. And as you can see, we just don't even really barely touch the 60% mark, meaning that over half of our students in the state of Missouri in fifth grade are scoring in the 50th percentile when it comes to our science assessment. And that constructed response continues to be a difficulty. And so we talked about constructed response being difficult for a myriad of reasons. Not only are you asking students to analyze or examine an investigation or the results of something and offer a scientific explanation, but you're also asking them to use their writing skills. And so she would say that a bulleted list often will get more points than a child that's tried to write everything in a paragraph or complete sentences. As long as the content is there, this is not a writing assessment. This is a science assessment. So my takeaway as a practitioner is that when I am setting up investigations or I'm having, scholars write in their science journal, I'm going to look at listing and bulleting as well as complete sentences and paragraphs. But we want to offer students a tool that they can use for constructed response. She also shared that there is a definite distribution of the types of test questions, yes, but also the content specific questions that they will see. She says it's a third, and a third for physical science, life science, and earth science. But I took just a snapshot of this on the screen because to me, when I open it up and I look at what she's telling us, it looks like fourth grade life science A1 is seen 7 times by students, whereas fifth grade earth science 1B1 is only seen twice. The points will come out the same because some are weighted more than others, but there are standards that students are going to see multiple times, more than others. So the points might end up being the same, but they're going to have to be ready to show their understanding of life science. So I thought this was an interesting graphic for fifth grade. If I get more information on this or can share the full document with you, I will. She's saying, as I said earlier, 50% is the norm of how they're scoring. And she says, it goes a little bit higher when you get to middle school, 6 through 8, because you have technology enhanced questions that are right at 59%. Multiple choice is 57%, and then your constructed response is even worse at middle school at 32%. And so takeaway for middle school teachers on the call is to think about bulleted lists, numbering, anything that would make it easier for students to get their thoughts across rather than having to feel like they're writing an essay. There's a lot of chatter in the room from teachers about assignments not aligning to the way that students are going to be assessed. So it's the old practice like you're going to play, backwards design, so that you are teaching and providing opportunities for students to engage in rigorous content that is going to be reflected on the state assessment. And how do you really do that, right? And so I'm hoping to have an answer for you at the end of this call with some work that we're doing at Step Up. But we also went on to talk about the fact that she would like to see the testing changed. She would like there to be interim tests. So if you teach your life cycle bundle and you're ready to assess, then you would be given the opportunity to give an interim assessment on those standards that cover life cycles. And if they didn't do well, they'd have the opportunity to assess again once you'd retaught it. So instead of us trying to cover all of these priority standards, and then they assess one time at the end of the school year, she would prefer that there were opportunities or benchmarks, interims throughout the school year where kids could show what they know. That's still in the works, but it is a vision of hers. The federal schools, the federal waiver schools, there were a couple of representatives in the room, and there was some feeling that maybe there's a message that because the MAP scores aren't going to count for the waiver schools, that perhaps science will be set aside, or they won't have to show proficiency. And of course, the message from Susan was, you have to show proficiency in science, whether you're taking the MAP test or not. So there needs to be another way to assess that. And it was just interesting that out of the less than 10 educators, there were 3 or 4 from waiver schools. So that was definitely a topic of conversation, is that even though you do have a waiver, you are still responsible for showing proficiency on the priority standards in science. Then we got into instruction, and just really a breath of fresh air, some of the ways that she is suggesting that educators approach, especially some of the SEPs, the science and engineering practices. And so she did a activity with this called Is It a Model? And she had cards, could be index cards for teachers, that were paper clipped together. Each educator in the room had a set of cards, but you could certainly do this in partners or in collaborative groups. And she asked us to sort the cards into 2 categories. Is this an example of a model in science, or is it not? This sort of card sorting activity, this categorization, can be done with really any concept. She chose to do with teaching us, is it a model? And what was great to see, a great takeaway, was that not only were we learning and reinforcing our understanding of scientific models, she was also asking us questions that helped us as educators co-construct a definition for what is a model. What's a representation? What's a replica? What it is and what it's not. So in the end, our takeaway was, it's not a model if it's a field trip, or you're dissecting a bone, you're observing a live bird in the moment at a bird feeder, you're looking at blood under a microscope, or you're watching a live video of a volcano erupting. So our model examples were those things that were a replica or a representation of something else. Great learning, and definitely an activity that could be applied to many different settings. She also talked about giving students sentence starters in order to provide feedback to their peers if they are examining a solution to a problem, or someone's explaining something, a model that they've built. Students often struggle with the scientific terms or the way to start their feedback. And so just like in collaborative conversations in ELA, we often give sentence starters. She's suggesting sentence starters in science as well. You know, we always want to provide opportunity for students to write, to understand. And so a science journal, questions about what they're doing is definitely something that is encouraged. And then she gave this graphic where she talked about, when you're lesson plan formatting, you want to gather, reason, and communicate. Those are the steps that you want students to go through. You want them to gather information, You want them to have reasoning and understanding of what's happening, and then be able to communicate that understanding. And so this was the graphic that she gave: investigating, sense making, and critiquing practices. I was not able to stay the whole day. I stayed in the morning. In the afternoon, she was going to go through a little more instructional strategies. But I wanted to share with you at Step Up our response to providing clarity for Missouri teachers in the area of ELA, math, and now science. We are in the process of developing a Missouri assessment and teaching tool book called our Science Map Book. And I just want to give you a little sample of what we're hoping to provide for educators in the area of science later this year. We have taken a priority standard. This happens to be for ESS 1CA, which is identifying evidence from patterns in rock formations. And every page we make, every section we make that goes with the priority standards unwraps your process and content vocabulary. It color codes your 3D so that you can see as an educator what's the content, what's the cross-cutting concept, what's the science and engineering practice. And then we've gone even further to go ahead and list what's on the expanded priority standards on DESE. So you don't have to go look for it, it's right there. And then we start with a level 4. It's a 4, 3, 2, 1 scale where 3 is proficient. And so we look at a level 4, what would be proficient, what would be advanced or beyond grade level for a student who is showing that they understand or have mastery over this priority standard. But really where the meat of it all hits is the level 3. What we've done is we've unwrapped the priority standard for educators, and then we've further unwrapped your science and engineering, your disciplinary core, and your cross-cutting concepts. So as an educator, you don't have to hunt for this. Here's the understanding for you right there. And then on the right side, these are released test items. They're from DESE. There's some MoLeap examples. There's lots and lots of research that has been done to find the very best science resources across the state of Missouri and beyond, and put those here for educators. And then one step below proficiency, and isn't that where we find most of our students begin their journey in science, is that step right below, and that's a level 2. We're going to give you vocab that maybe they have missed that would help them get to proficiency. And then we're going to show you what are the steps from their almost to proficiency to their way far away from proficiency. What are the understandings that they're missing? What anchor charts could you create? What are some examples of questions that you could walk through with students to help them bridge that gap? So this is the reteaching, or often it is the chunking of the information that they missed in years previously. So in short, what we provide for teachers in proficiency is released items, MoLeap units, item specs, sample stems, unwrapped standards, and a real laser focus on that 3D approach. And then for the scaffolding at level 2, we're providing videos, anchor charts, vocabulary, and mini lessons. We're excited about this product. We know that it will help Missouri educators. And so for more information about the products that we have available, especially in the area of science, that is coming very soon, that we have to support teachers in the state of Missouri, please visit our website. We'd love to hear from you. I hope the call has been beneficial for you. And if you have a chance to hear Susan German, look for those scheduled content calls that she has, because it's definitely worth your time. Definitely an expert in the field of science in the state of Missouri. Thank you for your time.